Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Planning and Heritage Committee meeting. And I would like to call the meeting to order. Okay, do we have any declarations of conflicts today?
Yeah, you do.
So,
You do. STRs. I know, but you have
Not
to
yet.
declare conflict of interest for the public record.
Okay, so I would be in conflict on the STRs.
Okay, thank you, and that's noted that Councillor Beck would be in conflict of the STR file. And before I have an approval of the agenda, I will ask that we will need to remove item number 2, which is the STR report, from our agenda today, as we do not have quorum. Okay. So that being said, that now that that item is removed from the agenda, can I have an approval of the agenda as it stands now? Okay, moved by
Okay,
Councillor.
so just,
Deputy Mayor, just to note, you're still not being broadcast.
we should be.
Oh, I see the camera and my mic is on.
Can you see yourself reflected on the video there? 'Cause
I can.
Maybe I'm on the wrong page. My apologies. Forgive
Yes.
my interruptions. So sorry.
Okay,
Okay, just a point of order, Madam Chair.
yes, Your
So
Worship.
if we are approving the agenda, then how do we remove STRs when we have Councillor Beck here? This creates a whole dilemma. I didn't know this would happen. CAO Eleanor?
Can you repeat the question?
So
I
the
just had to get
question
you on
is
video. Now
to-
I can see you.
To approve the agenda, correct?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have to remove the STR item. And does that put Councillor Beck in conflict? Just clarification.
I don't think you're at a conflict for approving the agenda and removing it off the agenda because you're doing so by quorum, because you're only voting on the agenda at this point. So there's no
Correct.
conflicts in terms
Yeah.
of voting on the agenda.
Okay.
It's just the STR item that you would be in conflict on.
So, Madam Chair, can I get that also verified through legal?
Yes, Your
Yeah,
Worship, you
yeah.
can. That's been noted in our minutes. Thank you. So now, can I get an approval of our agenda with item number 2 and 3, the SDR report and the short-term rental licensing bylaw, both removed from the agenda? Okay, moved by Councillor Beck and seconded by His Worship. Thank you. And an adoption of the minutes from our last meeting, moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor Beck. Any business arising from those minutes?
Yes, Madam Chair. So I'm looking at number 7, interim, this is on page 2, our digital copy, interim design review roster. You know and I know we've had questions about some design reviews. So has that design review roster, has it been put in place? And is it looking at the applications that the applications that are being submitted to the design review roster through the, Madam Chair, if I could get an answer for that?
Thank you for that question, Your Worship. I think I will defer that to our manager, to Donna, if you could address that for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Your Worship. Yes, the interim design review roster is in place, and the persons that are on the list are actively reviewing the applications as they come in. So it's in effect.
Just a follow-up question, Madam Chair. So there are a couple of outstanding design reviews that have been coming back to this planning committee, planning board, design review. Do we have a timeline on when they will be addressed?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I will defer that to Donna once again, our manager.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Your Worship. So I am aware of one development application that went through the process where the design reviewer did an initial review and asked that the developer provided additional information. This was provided recently, and so it's going to go back to the design reviewer to see if he's okay with the suggestions that he's made in terms of what the developers have done, and then it will come to the design review board after the sign off.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Let's see, where are we? Business arising from the minutes, and, okay. So we can move on to reports. And now that we just have the one, that would be the Growth Management Strategy Report. And I believe, Donna, you'll take that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the purpose of this report today is to introduce Council to the Charlottetown Management Strategy Report, which CBCL Limited completed in September 2022. The City commissioned this growth management strategy in 2019, and the report looked at conceptual population growth scenarios, master planning for water, sanitary and storm infrastructure, transportation network, and a preliminary asset management framework. The city's objective in commissioning the report was to plan for future growth, identify existing issues, and determine appropriate solutions to build resilience into future services. The growth management strategy and water and sewer master plans are to act as a roadmap for the city to assist with long-range planning. The report identified issues with existing infrastructure. It also looked at potential growth, future servicing areas, and the city's future infrastructure needs. This strategy has 8 chapters. Chapter 1, Introduction. Chapter 2, Growth Scenario Overview. Chapter 3, Water System Master Plan. Chapter 4, Sanitary System Master Plan. Chapter 5, Transportation System Review. Chapter 6, Stormwater System Review. Chapter 7, Asset Management Plan. And then Chapter 8 looked at recommendations and conclusions. However, today's report will look specifically at Chapter 2, which is the Growth Scenario Overview. A more comprehensive review of each chapter can be undertaken at other meetings, as the recommendations will be assessed for incorporation into the official plan and other policies. So we go straight to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 identified appropriate locations for new development, and this is critical to the growth management strategy. The CBCL consultants used different methodologies to identify suitable sites for development north and south of the Trans-Canada Highway. A greenfield site analysis was undertaken north of the highway, where they relied primarily on physical factors to create a suitability map of the urban expansion areas. The sites for infill development were identified using location, potential redevelopment, and existing zoning south of the highway, which is a little bit denser. The methodologies used in the report created 4 scenarios, namely Scenario 1, outward growth focus, Scenario 2, corridor growth focused with low-density suburban expansion, Scenario 2A, corridor growth focus with mid-density suburban expansion, and Scenario 3, concentrated growth. The 4 identified scenarios do not forecast an exact future state of development. So in identifying a preferred growth scenario, the consultants looked at the policies of the official plan because they were without an extensive public engagement process. They looked at high-level fiscal sustainability, feasibility to implement the scenario. After assessing these elements, the consultants identified scenario 2 as the preferred growth scenario. In their analysis, it was highlighted that carrying out development through infills on underutilized properties along commercial corridors in Charlottetown presents an attainable option. Another issue that the consultants looked at throughout the strategy is whether the geographic extent of the city can accommodate the projected population growth of 18,032, and if annexation or an amalgamation with neighboring municipalities was needed. They concluded that in all scenarios except for the outward growth focus of scenario 1, there is generally sufficient land suitable for development to accommodate projected population growth until 2041. In summary conclusions, the primary growth scenarios that the consultants considered were outward growth focus, corridor growth with low-density suburban expansion, corridor growth with mid-density suburban expansion, and concentrated growth. Outward growth focus involves expanding operations, infrastructure, or residential areas into peripheral greenfields. This strategy aims to capitalize on available land and resources, but may require substantial transportation and utilities infrastructure investment. The corridor growth with low-density suburban expansion focuses on expanding along existing transportation corridors, typically through low-density suburban development. It encourages controlled growth while preserving green spaces. Benefits include accessible transportation, the potential for balanced development, and maintaining a suburban lifestyle. The corridor growth with mid-density suburban expansion, like the low-density corridor growth strategy, this scenario envisions mid-density suburban expansion along existing transportation corridors. It compromises between conserving green spaces and accommodating more residences or businesses. Advantages include better land utilization, efficient transportation connectivity, and improved access to amenities. Concentrated growth involves intensifying development within an existing urban core or designated areas. It promotes sustainable practices, reduces commute times, and maximizes existing infrastructure. Key benefits include reduced environmental impact, accessibility to amenities, and fostering vibrant communities. Outward growth focus can provide opportunities for large-scale expansion, but may require significant investment. Corridor growth scenarios offer controlled suburban development along existing infrastructure, while concentrated growth prioritizes sustainability and urban revitalization. Combining these strategies can also strike a balance between growth and sustainability. As was stated earlier, the growth strategy recommendations will be incorporated into the official plan and other policies as required, and additional presentations that are more compact and with more details can be done in later meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, for that. And I realize that this report is for information purposes only, but I will just open it up to folks here in the room if they have any questions. Go ahead, Councillor Beck.
Yeah, thank you for that, Donna. So we've already had a bit of a backgrounder on this, similar back when Alex was here, right? We had a kind of an overview, it's not largely different, it doesn't seem, from what we were kind of led to believe earlier on. Am I correct in saying that?
Councillor Beck, I think what the previous manager was referring to is that we had this plan and then it came about, or it surfaced when Upland came to Charlottetown to do their engagement seminars or engagement sessions, that's when we discovered, oh, we have a plan, and not only a plan for planning, but also for water, wastewater, parks, like all facets of the community.
One thing I'm just a little unclear on still, Don, and maybe you can elaborate for me, is the difference between low-density suburban and medium-density suburban. One was scenario 2, and the other was 2A. There seems to be a lot of similarities between the two, but how would you maybe categorize or differentiate those two scenarios? What do they look like, I guess, at the end of the day? If we went with one, what would it look like? If we went with the other, what would that look like?
So through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Beck. So the low-density development will look similar to what we have now, but would look at infills throughout, so vacant brownfield lots to develop those. Of a mid-density would look at probably increasing heights on some of these existing corridors within the city. So one will look a little bit taller and the other one would remain flat. And the amount of persons that would be occupying, say, a lot would probably remain at single family kind of density. However, with the mid, you'll have like probably duplexes or apartments or townhouses. That's what the difference would be between, say, low and mid.
I thought part of our plan was to increase density along corridors and nodes, was my understanding.
So,
Would that not be in the mid-density
yep,
side?
you're correct, but we have not yet completed our new official plan. So those were some of the recommendations, but we've never gone to the next steps yet, which is happening this fall. So
Okay.
although those were recommendations, those have not been received nor approved by council because there's still much public consultation still yet to be had in terms of the official plan.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand everything here in terms of, because they are interconnected, but they're different. They're different, but they're the same. Or there are similarities within each one, and they are definitely connected one to the other.
And correct me, Donna, if I'm incorrect when I say this, the growth management study is a guiding document that will help us in reopening our official plan and making decisions wisely based on recommendations from the consultants this will help back up what decisions we make. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, you are correct. That is what this document was intended for, to be the guiding document for the entire city's operations in terms of how we look at infrastructure planning to support any residential development, whether it be residential development within the city, or on the peripheries. So it actually provided like a synopsis of what we would need to do overall to ensure that we are building in sustainability and resilience in all our services in the city.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes,
I want
Your
to
Worship.
thank Donna. Donna, thanks for the background report. Well done. Like that, I think, gives it in a snapshot of what we're trying to look at or what we're trying to visualize going down the road. And as the chair said, Deputy Mayor Yankoff, is that we started the discussions on the official plan and now we've been sidetracked. I'm hoping, Madam Chair, that we can get back on track because this is a dire need to get this comprehensive view completed because it looks at the big areas that is covered in this growth management study: transportation, housing, community character, growth, public space, climate change and the environment, social equity, local economy. Those are all the same areas that Upland are trying to, they've reached out to the community in the several or more sessions that we had back in the spring of this year. So Donna, the report itself is about, I finally got a hold of the full report. It's a half a gigabyte. It's a lot of information. And I've been asking, I've been asking our CAO, Eleanor, about, when are we going to get some finer points that we can bring to the council chamber to go over each of the areas: water, wastewater, parks, recreation, public works, infrastructure, housing. And the reason I stop at housing, because there's also, Madam Chair, there's a Charlottetown Region Growth Study and Housing Needs Assessment that involves the community, three communities: City of Charlottetown, Town of Cornwall, and Town of Stratford. So we have that report. We have the CBCL report. We have Upland and O2 going through this comprehensive review of the official plan. And then we're dealing with the issue of housing. Like, if you look at the discussion around our mental health crisis, our drug addiction issues, misuse of alcohol, it goes back to housing. We need more housing. And I've said, Donna, over and over again, we're not at zero vacancy. We're in the negative. Like, we are not keeping up. And I know the federal government is pushing on this Accelerator Fund program, and they're asking other communities to, look, we want you to commit to this, commit to that. But, Madam Chair, we can't commit to anything until we do our due diligence in an overhaul, comprehensive review of our official plan. So hopefully Sean Fraser, the Minister of Housing for the federal government, understands that we have a responsibility to the residents of Charlottetown and the citizens of this community to ensure that if we're going to make changes, we have to follow a due diligence process. And I think, Donna, you've been involved or been CC'd to some of this correspondence going back and forth. With that Accelerator Fund, I think we could get the person power in place to help digest all this information and ensure that we're not working in silos, that the silos have been broken down to allow us to bring this all together, so we're all working towards a common goal, and that is to ensure that the future of our community will not be overburdened by infrastructure issues, by water and wastewater issues, by lack of parklands. That's why, Madam Chair, this Accelerator Fund is so important for us to get a hold of. And I think you know our MP, Sean Casey. Councillor Beck knows Sean Casey. I think we have to put the pressure on our local MP that we need this funding through this Accelerator Fund to help us get this up and hopefully running in a couple of years. I know it's a big project. Any thoughts, Madam Chair? Can I go through to you to our Manager of
Yes, Your Worship.
Policy and Heritage?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Your Worship. So the Housing Accelerator Fund that you spoke to, the update of the official plan to align with the update of the zoning and development bylaw are actually items that are listed for funding through that particular program. And it was done to ensure that the housing inputs that will be put through the city is not something that would be done in silo, but it would be done as an integrated approach. And so we looked at it to say, if we're going to be increasing densities or all of that, then we would need to have the policy guidelines to back that up. And so that's a critical part of how we plan to approach that in terms of how we provide more housing or additional housing to the city, and to ensure that when it's done, it's not just done out of it's probably something that is a pie in the sky kind of thing, but it's done in a way that is sustainable. We know that we're targeting the population that needs housing the most, and so there would be mixed, so there'd be affordable housing, market rate housing, and so the community will know that whatever we're doing it out of plans that are in place and plans that are integrated to look at infrastructure development, and that we are not outgrowing ourselves, meaning we are developing houses but we don't have the infrastructure to support it and all of that, because with increased densities will come the need for increased infrastructure in place. So it's something that we've considered, and hopefully that funding will come through soon, and we will revamp and start again afresh or where we left off, where the official plan is concerned.
So, Madam Chair, just to follow up what Donna has stated, is that municipalities, we don't have the fiscal firepower that the other levels of government have, but we do have that tool you referred to, the zoning and development bylaw. But to ensure that we cover what we want to do going down the road, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, we need to update, revamp the official plan. And with the whole crisis of the housing portfolio or file, it was a top of the agenda topic when the Liberals had their Charlottetown retreat here several weeks ago, and now it's the same on the floor of Parliament, where the opposition is saying that if municipalities can't do it, then we'll use other means of getting housing processed quicker than what we're doing now. And I think that is addressed in this official plan review by Upland, where they're talking about more density, taller buildings, fatter buildings, looking at taking those 0.5 acre lots that we have throughout the city, reducing that down to 0.34 or maybe 0.27, which will allow 1,700, maybe 2,000 plus secondary apartments or garden suites that will be again adding to the housing stock. But again, we're like this official plan review, we've stalled it, Madam Chair, and not because of us. It's just because of the circumstances that we're in, and hopefully we can keep moving. But we have to get back on this whole official review or comprehensive review of the official plan so that we can get the tools in place within the official plan, filtered down to the tools within the zoning development bylaw to get working on providing the density and in these corridors that you identified. But there are developments, Donna, that are in the queue that are already asking to build taller, build fatter buildings. And that means we'll have to make exceptions to our bylaw through variances. So I'm just asking that and I know the CAO is on the call with us, is that we have to move this quicker because there's too much pressure on us not to ignore it. We have to address it now and keep pushing to get this engagement back on track with Upland and O2 on the comprehensive review of the official plan. And Madam Chair knows that we did receive $500,000 through the Bill Community Fund, which is a former gas tax transfer, to do this review. So the funds are there. We have the Upland and O2 as the consultants. We have the CBCL comprehensive growth management plan. We have the Charlottetown Region Growth Study and Housing Needs Assessment. Like, we have all the information. It's now, let's put it together. And again, Donna, I know you're doing a great job, and I know it's a tall order to ask, but politically we have to keep pushing. We cannot slow down. We have to speed it up so that we can get things moving. Get this housing file moved to the top of our agenda. And when I talk about housing, you know yourself, Madam Chair, so does Councillor Beck. We're talking about public housing, affordable housing, We're talking about social housing, co-op housing, and also subsidized housing. And those types of housing are under the non-market sector of the housing construction equation. But we have to get moving on it. And look, CAO Eleanor, whatever we can do to get this moving quicker, or to move quicker, we have to. This is a good place to start from.
Thank you, Your Worship. Would you like a comment from CAO Mohammed or from Manager Donna?
Either or both.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
We'll go with our Manager of Heritage and Policy first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, to Your Worship. We are pretty aware of the housing crisis that exists currently in Charlottetown and indeed the entire country. And this is something that we have been looking at, well, since I've gotten here. It has been top of our agenda and how we probably look at different programs that we can access this through. And the HAF, the Housing Accelerator Fund, was one of those programs. And as I had stated before, we ensured that we included some elements in there that would help in this regard in terms of providing well-needed housing for the citizens of Charlottetown. And it will also include looking at how we revamp the zoning and development bylaw and the official plan so that they are both speaking the same language in terms of where we're going and what we plan to do. It is also something that is on the department's agenda to look into. As you know, we already have the affordable housing program, and some of the developers are taking advantage of that, and we hope that more will come in. And as we go forward, and as we complete the STR file and we go into parking minimums and all of that, then we will put the official plan and the revamping of the zoning and development bylaw, whether it be at first through amendments, to ensure that we address all the critical issues to which the mayor alluded to.
Thank you for that, Donna. Does anyone else have any other comments on this agenda item before we move on to new business?
Madam Chair, if, again, just to follow up on the Housing Accelerator Fund, I think that we just we have to focus on the minister responsible, the federal minister responsible for housing, Sean Fraser, Atlantic Canadian from Nova Scotia, to look like I believe our application is in the queue. So it being in the queue gives us a little room to push it politically. And I think that we will have to go through our MP's office, the MP Sean Casey, to ask if we can speak with the minister responsible for housing, Sean Fraser, to get at least an okay on the Housing Accelerator Fund, because we need it. And being the capital of Prince Edward Island, being an historic capital in this country, and our willingness to do something about this issue like we've been doing over the last couple of years, or since 2019, Madam Chair, when we brought in the affordable housing tax incentive. And that housing tax incentive is a 10-year sliding scale tax program for developers, for NGOs, for government to use to offset property taxes. And that's the only source of tax that we have is the property tax. So I just, Donna, as I said, I know the department is doing as much as it can, but I think we politically and through senior management, City Hall, we have to push the envelope further, push it more to get this back on track and get the ear of the minister in Ottawa, Sean Fraser. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Anything else from you, Councillor Beck? So, introduction of new business.
I just have one comment, Madam Chair. When I look at our and I can put this under a notice, but when I look at our zone and development bylaw, the Department of Planning, Development, and Heritage is responsible for signage, correct? So if I want to get a sign, I go down to the department and get an application. Is that correct, Madam Chair? Again, I had a call today about it, and he said,
Yes.
no, he was directed to go somewhere else.
No, it would start with planning, heritage, development.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, because I know when, for the election signs, I didn't go through Public Works. I went through planning to get my permit to put them up.
I know today there was a presentation with economic development around digital signage, and the presentation went through economic development. And although it was an interesting presentation that I listened to, it really will have to start at planning and heritage and development.
The system has detected that a few lines are still connected to the conference and will attempt to disconnect them. If you wish to remain in the conference, please press star 1. 15. To dial out, please dial the area code and number that you wish to connect to the conference, followed by the pound sign. Press star to return to the conference.
Okay, did you want to respond to that, Donna? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to you, Your Worship. Are those signs on private property or in the public right-of-way?
They would be in the public right away, but it may not be on our land. It could be on provincial government. It could be on a commercial business. It could be on a church property, religious property. So it's not just right away. It's anything that that deals with signage.
So the zoning and development bylaw, Your Worship, deals with signage that's on private property. So
Public property, where does that go?
the public right-of-way, that would be Public Works.
Okay, well, then that's interesting. I wonder why that presentation was done in economic development then, today.
I don't know. I didn't go to the.
Anywho, maybe we can put under new business for next month, some clarification around signage, because once again, if we're working in silos again
Thank you.
around signage.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
It just becomes problematic. And the other thing we could add to new business is maybe an update on where we're at, and a timeline around our official plan and our zoning and development bylaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anything else from this huge room of people? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor Beck. All those in favor, have a good evening, and anyone listening, stay tuned. In 10 minutes, we're about to start a planning board meeting.